Doesn't matter so much what it is that you do, it's who you become when you do what you do that matters.
This week on Durand On Demand, I asked Dave the question, what matters most as a CEO? Then we addressed the two keys that drive a leader to success and how to prevent delays from happening in your business. We hope you enjoy this episode of Durand On Demand.
All right, Dave. So today we're going to talk about what matters most as a CEO. You are in the captain's chair today, and I just wanted to ask you, what are the things or thing that most matters as a CEO to lead and to build a great organization?
Okay, so it's actually an easier answer than most people would think. I think some people would say, well, are you going to get into the financial structures? Or if you're going to build a big company, are there going to be political aspects involved? Do you know how to combine those things? Procuring resources. Okay. Technology. This is another thing, big thing people are going to say. Even recruiting. But I would say it could be every one of those, but each one of those is actually delivered by way of resolve. Resolve is actually the number one thing, but there's a second side to resolve. Okay, so the resolute leader says, we have a problem. We need to solve it. We don't have the money. We don't have the resources. We don't have the human capital. We don't have the right culture. We don't have the right marketing materials, technology. And so the resolute person says, we're going to find it. And but that's only the first side to it. The second side to it is creativity. So it's this combination between resolve. This would be the 1-2 punch of great leadership, right? It would be resolve and creativity. Now, what I've learned is that these things cannot happen without what we've talked about many times on the show. If you've got an absolutely huge amount of vice and low-level virtue, your resolve is going to be low and your creativity is going to be off base. But even if you think about it, the person is resolute. We're going to get this done. In physical fitness, it would be the person who hears no pain, no gain, right? And so they just work out 24 hours a day and they eat this one particular way that they learned when they were 7. Well, there's a lot that we've learned about nutrition over the years and a lot that we've learned about overtraining over the years, and people who abide by the most accurate information and don't do the 24-hour workouts can quadruple the results that other people have. And they both have the same amount of resolve, but one of them has zero creativity. They just do what they know how to do. The person that has resolution and creativity is always finding different angles. And the creative person, a lot of people don't think too much about creativity being related to having high levels of virtue. They think about it being just kind of a natural thing like an artist. There is a certain element to that is very true. But creativity has to do with saying, I'm not so connected to an existing idea, whether it be my own or somebody else's, that I won't step outside of that in humility in order to try something else. Now, it's not always a function of humility, okay? But that's a really important thing. So we're going to try, but if it doesn't, we're going to try differently. What do both of those have in common? Trying. What does this one not have in common with the other? Doing it differently, okay? Now, some people are so creative that they don't have resolution. Okay, so they like change for the sake of change. They're just whimsically doing things differently because they're in creative mode all the time, and they don't understand that there's an outcome that is necessary and a purpose to what they're being creative for. So you've got the opposite side of this too, which is to say that on resolution, there's a certain amount of virtue, right? Now, you can be vice-oriented as a resolute person, like a dictator. You're just simply going to get it done no matter what at any cost. But if you're a high-virtue resolute person and a high-virtue creative person, you're going to recognize that you're going to get things done, but you're going to do it with the respect, I should say, with the dignity of people in mind, okay? You're going to do it by certain principles like the end doesn't justify the means, that sort of axiom in ethics and morals. and you're going to do it in a creative way, but not one that is so whimsical that it loses the actual function or purpose of what you're doing.
When we were talking about this topic last week, there were a few components that you brought into light that a lot of people may not necessarily consider when it comes to being a CEO and a leader. Talk about technology, talk about understanding the human component and how all that kind of plays into the role of perhaps being an empathetic leader and driving with that in mind.
So I think there's an overemphasis on technology. People are always looking for the technological advantage. But the more that we actually advance in technology as a world, the more this enters the public domain. I mean, AI, for example, is something that most people have access to. It's just whether they're going to use it or not. That's not to say that technology is not incredibly important in this. I'm a big advocate of using technology and staying technologically advanced. I want to make sure that it's very, very clear in what I am saying. It is a huge component of success. I've just found it to be the easiest side of things that way. Find a person who's great at technology, hire them, and watch. You'll have great technology in your organization. Interacting with it makes sense. You need to know what it is you're asking them to do and why and for what purpose. So that's really there. So, but the other side of it that you asked about is like being an empathetic leader. This is a big thing. Empathy as a leader is not really talked about. And here's the interesting thing about it. You could actually look at empathy almost as like this like utilitarian skill. Okay. Now, the reason you can't look at it that way is because that would not actually be empathy. That would be narcissism. Narcissists have the ability to recognize that a person has a particular emotion about them, so they know they're supposed to interact. There's a gentleman in one of the towns that I lived in who was autistic, and he had an incredible memory. I mean, he could remember every single thing about it. He was just kind of meander about town. He was in his 30s probably by this point, but I would have met him when he was in his late teens, and he just would meander around town. He was, relatively functional, but he would meet you and he would say, "What is your name?" You'd see him 3 years later and he'd say, "Your name is," he would give you your name, your birth date, the name of all of your kids, where you lived, what your addresses were. 3 years later, he'd remember all of it. And I don't know if this is, he would have more than autism, maybe. I don't know if that's a necessarily specific trait of autism, although I know that it's not an uncommon thing that people with autism can have quite a memory. But what was interesting is that if you were to make a joke, he didn't get it. Now, again, autism is a spectrum, so I'm speaking of this particular person. So he would react this way. He would get irritated, and then he would calm himself, and he'd go, "You are joking, ha. You are joking, ha." And he'd do this thing. So he knew that he recognized something in you that said, "I should be feeling a particular emotion. I've been skillfully trained on how to do that, but it comes off as insincere." Well, that's because that person is struggling with something. The person who's a narcissist actually is a little bit more calculated. They know that what they're going to do is to react in a way, similarly, their coach, they're going, "Well, I know I'm supposed to react this particular way to get you to do something," but they're very good at acting that out. They don't feel it. That's the difference. They don't feel it. They don't actually have empathy. So why do I say that? Well, because the best way to go about this is to fully be an empathetic person all the way. You want to be empathetic. But I'm selling people on the value of empathy when I do this, in which to say that even if you were a callous narcissistic person who wanted to generate big outcomes, you would still know you should act empathetic in order to get what it is you want to do. Now, over time, people are going to figure out narcissists can only hide for so long before they're devoured. But empathy is a tool that is used by people who are good and manipulated by people who are bad. Why? Because we all want it. On the receiving end, we want empathy, no matter who we are. Ironically, the narcissist wants empathy. So it's very important for us to say, okay, this person who works with me, they are an individual person. They have hopes, they have dreams, they have aspirations, they have concerns, they have anxieties. If I can align my mission with their mission for a unified mission, and if I'm the leader of the organization, I started a company because I have a mission. So it's not like, hey, I want to hire a bunch of people and say, what's your mission in life? Your mission is completely different than mine. Let's go build a company based on your mission. My mission, that doesn't work. But a part of their mission would be maybe to advance, to be able to take their family to Disney World for a vacation, to whatever it happens to be. And if they can reach part of their mission through the mission that you're doing, that's great. Or if you can introduce them to a new mission that they become a part of that matters. But they're universal missions. So one of the things I always tell people is, it's not so matter what you do. It doesn't matter so much what it is that you do. It's who you become when you do what you do that matters. Well, almost everybody on planet Earth wants to be the best version of themselves. They want to become better. So if you're going to go out there and you're the pro football team and your objective is to win the Super Bowl, that's great. If you can, and that's pretty easy. Everybody's there to win the Super Bowl. So it's like there's aligned missions right from the start. That's what the kid wanted to do since he was young, and now he's aligned mission. But there may be somebody else that never really wanted that mission, or it's a different mission. You always hear me talk about the Paperclips Incorporated company, just as kind of this, since it's like our version of Acme. Nobody has ever sat around saying, you know what I want to do when I grow up? Everybody say I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a pro athlete. I want to be a paperclip salesperson. But what happens is the person finds themselves in Paperclip Incorporated. I mean, most companies are equivalent to that, okay? And why can they enjoy it? How can they stay there for 5, 10 years, 15, 20 years, retire there and enjoy it? Because they bring their passion to the work. They align themselves to a mission. They never had a dream of becoming paperclip person, but they want to be the best. And we all want to be the best. It's so funny. We can have the most obscure little task. It can be like you're helping volunteering someplace. You never had aspirations for this sort of thing, but you've got one little goal in what you're doing and you make it better. We went one time, I took my family to one of those cooking schools where they have a couple of different chefs divide you up into groups, and they give you each a course. Okay, and you make your dish, and then you present it to the family, for the meal, and whoever makes it the best, presents it the best, everybody kind of votes on who did it the best. I've never had aspirations to be known as a chef in any way at all, but here I am. I'm in there with my family, and I'm like, oh, we got to have this hors d'oeuvre is going to be the best of all the different things, and you want to do it your best. Because it says something to take quality in the work that you're doing. And so we do want to take quality in the work that we're doing. I think the big confusion a lot of young people have is they think that the thing it is that they're doing has to change the world. And, change the world is starting with just cleaning your room and making sure that it looks nice. And taking pride in the little things that we do, which lead to the bigger things that we do. Now, you can have success by skipping a lot of these things. But eventually you start to realize that you are a person of pattern, and you're a person who now does things to their best in a magnanimous fashion for great reasons and purpose, or you're a person who generally does everything sloppy. And you start to make that decision over time. And I think this is an essential part of looking at even things like empathy in the workplace, is to say, how can I look at that other person and say, how can I help them become the best version of who they are through the work that we're doing? Because they're going to never forget that, and they're going to love you for it. They have to do the work, by the way, but you can provide the culture for them to do that. And most of them just don't want to leave. That's one of the reasons we have an organization such low voluntary turnover, is you create an environment that just people don't want to leave it.
When you're a CEO, you have to recognize patterns in other people in getting the work done. And you, as someone who has led thousands of people throughout your career, Dave, as a CEO, what percentage of delays would you say are actually valid, and what percentage are in?
Oh, yeah, this is a great question. So delays, I'll use excuses and delays synonymously. It's a great question, Nico. And by the way, a lot of the things that I've learned, I just want, you'll ask me, well, hey, as the CEO or the guy who's built this sort of thing. I mean, I have my own experiences, but I also have learned from tremendous mentors. And I spend a lot of time speaking to a lot of other small business owners or medium-sized company owners or CEOs of large organizations. So these are universal principles. I think that that's a much more important thing than just saying, hey, Dave is touting his own opinion and attitude here. But I'm going to, because I haven't asked the specific question, I'm anecdotally going at this. 99% of excuses and delays are invalid. 99%. And some people say, well, that sounds unfair. Well, here's why it's not. You have one project that needs to advance. There might be 15 people connected to that project. And if every one of them has their life entirely in order, is in line with what's going on and excited about it, you might have no delays. But you're probably going to have within 15 people, I don't know, 3 of them, 2 of them that are struggling with something mentally, emotionally, physically, relationally, financially. So when they come to work, as opposed to thinking about what it is they need to accomplish, they're thinking about leaving work so they can go manage the bigger problem that they have. Even if in general they like their work, they have an acute circumstance that is distracting them. So now you say, we need this by Tuesday at whatever. And they say, well, I can't get it then. It's going to have to be Thursday. And you think, well, why? What's on your plate? Nothing. They're not thinking about what's on their plate that way. They're thinking about how they're overwhelmed, or they need to leave early, or how they had planned to work from home that one day to get a lot of stuff done, when in reality it was to manage their personal life. They don't say that, you don't see it. Well, if that happens for one person, now all of a sudden you've got 4 people related to that person on the project that are now waiting till Thursday. They don't even know why. But it's so-and-so who's waiting for so-and-so who's waiting for so-and-so. Well, if you have 3 people starting out of 15 from that sort of mentality, even if it's by an hour or 2 hours, let alone 3 days, or a big circumstance or a small circumstance, or you just caught them in a bad mood and they're delaying the project, the whole overall project is lost not just by the 3 days of the one person, but it's by the 3 days that the people who needed it done before that also lost, which pushes it back 3 more days, and then 3 more days, and then 3 more days. So you have this exponential thing. The key part for a leader isn't to say, since I know 99% of all delays and problems are excuses and invalid, I'm just going to declare that. I'm going to count off 99 bad ones and then pick one good one. No. What makes a great leader is knowing when that one is real. Because when you accuse somebody, this is nonsense, this is ridiculous, this is an invalid thing, that's a Pyrrhic victory. That is a victory that comes at so great a cost. You've lost rapport, you've lost culture. So it's not that you can just wipe away all 99 problems, or you can just tell people, invalid, deal with it. What makes a great leader is kind of related to that empathy question. Why do we have this delay? What is in the way? Is it an actual real thing that's happening functionally? Like we actually legitimately have a product that we're supposed to get and it's not there? Here's what happens all the time. Oh my gosh, this just drives me crazy. But you have to deal with it. You just have to learn to deal with it. Okay, in order to get this done, we needed this one component, this one product, or this one part of the meeting, this one piece of data. Where is that? I don't know. I emailed them and I never heard back. You emailed them and never... No. We didn't ask you to email them. We asked you to get the product here because all the rest of it is taking place of it. But what they did is they just sent off an email. I've done my job now. And they move along doing nothing while everybody else is literally unable to get anything done. Now, half the time you find out, oh, you know what? I didn't actually press send. Sorry, it's still in my outbox. Or they did reply, but it was buried in a bunch of messages. Or I never followed up to ask them if they got it. At my company, they call it Dave Duranding somebody to death. I never say... when I say, hey, we need this component by this day at this time, if you come to the meeting and we don't have that component, whether it's data, information, product, server, whatever it is, and I say, well, where is it? And you go, I don't know, I emailed them. Oh, no. That is never going to work. That's never going to work. I didn't ask you to email them. Our to-do list would have said, email this person. Send a text to that person. It's not. It's communicate this and get it done. Get the component was the job, not email the person about get it. So email them, call them, then text them, send a candygram, fly a plane over with a sign over, drive over, fly over, pick it up, take it, bring it, no matter what it takes, get it here. And when you hear that assignment as email them, you just don't care. You either don't understand the importance of it, you don't understand how it's connected to everything else. That's the type of reason that there is a delay. And those are absolutely, without question, invalid. They are, without question, solvable. And the great leader is steely about this. So I'm very generally, hey, how you doing? What's up, Nico? How you doing, man? That's how I want the environment in the workplace. I'm emotionally consistent with people, but there is a consistent portion of that I have. The consistent one is if you are lazy about your work in an avoidable fashion, I will not let it slide. I will say something. And that is powerful because it means people know I will say something, which means they don't want to show up that way. You know, what's really funny is that people will hire accountability coaches outside of their work who they don't want to let down, or even therapists. Oh, I'm going to see my therapist in a week and I don't want to let my therapist down, so I have to have this good behavior. So in a way, when you're leading somebody and you're consistent with your replies, now, by the way, it doesn't mean you should be unkind, but dissatisfied is just, hey, just so you know, I want you to know, I didn't ask you to email them. I asked you to bring the component. Every single time that we do this, you need to arrive at that component. And here's how I will know that you are doing your job the right way. If there's a problem with getting that done, you're going to notify me immediately so that by the time we get to this part of the meeting, I am updated on why that is not happening, not shocked by it when we get here and none of us can do our job. If I'm shocked by it at the end, it means you were ignorant of it, you didn't know about it because you just sent off an email, and here we are. So this is super important to know that if you want to be productive, you need to get it done. But also if you're going to lead somebody, those are behaviors you just don't accept. And you're very clear about what that means. You're very clear about what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, how to get something, how to not get something done. And you have a general understanding of the larger circumstance, which includes the fact that people's personal lives are going to get in the way of their commitment to the overarching goal, even if generally they are interested in the overarching goal, but they've got something acute happening as opposed to perpetual. So those are components that tie to almost all the questions you were asking me for: resolve, creativity, empathy, and just general getting it doneness.
Hey there, Giant. Thanks for watching Durand On Demand. I need your help with something. The world desperately needs more giants. You know it, and I know it. We've been around a lot of people struggling, figuring out how to make things go. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this with as many people as you can. We're going to build this audience, and we're going to help people slay dragons together.